Mm. Thank you, God, for this life. Saturday. Most people will never experience real power. You know why? Because they don't even know what it looks like. Because they are sleeping when it is being built. So that's right. If you're here with me at 4 a.m., you are already ahead. So blessings. And welcome to Raw at 4 Epoch 1, Day 81. System checkpoint and reflection. 81 days in, by now, you should already know this ain't about hype or motivation. Either you're locked in or you're lying to yourself. So, this is the system checkpoint. Is your discipline real or just a performance? Is your faith active or still optional? Is your network reinforcing your execution or dragging it down? No more convincing yourself you're doing enough. It's either undeniable or it is not. Today, you're answering one question. Are you built for this? Are you built for this? Let's be really real, raw and uncooked, just for a second. Most people like the idea of transformation more than the actual work. Most people like the idea of execution but can't handle the reality of it. Most people love to talk about change but hate the part where they gotta become something different. So now we're 81 days deep. You could check the archives. Let me ask you this. Simple and plain, all the way really real. Who are you right now? Not who you were on day one, not who you hope to be on day 100. Who are you right now, today, in this moment? Are you executing? Are you still just yapping? If I looked at your habits, would I see proof? Because if you're really about this life, it should be undeniable. This is a checkpoint, not a celebration. If you're winning, prove it. If you're falling and failing, fix it. If you are stagnant, especially if you've been following, but at this point, move. Are you running the system or is the system running you? I'm going to start with personal perspective today. Checkpoints. Checkpoints. Really an extension of what I've trained myself to do relentlessly, which can be put under the category of self auditing. Like everything else in the cliche Jeff world, I learned the hard way. I've had moments, many moments, where I thought I was executing, I was cooking, like the young ones say. But when I really looked, I was stalling. I was convincing myself that I was figuring it out when I was really just avoiding decisions. I was moving, but at a pace so slow, it was functionally the same as standing still. And I paid for it. Paid for it in the biggest way. Lost time, which equates to lost opportunities and lost momentum. Because here's the thing. When you don't stop to check your system, you don't just drift. The world will check it for you. The day will come where you can't hide behind potential. The day will come when you realize you've been living inside a loop, working, thinking, planning, but never escaping. The day will come when you are forced to face the truth. Are you in control, or are you just reacting to life as it happens? Big difference. That's why. That is why these system checkpoints exist. At the highest level of system ownership, you're no longer waiting for the world to test you. You are testing yourself. You are so locked in consciously that your subconscious follows your lead. Most will miss that. Most will never even understand what that means. Your mind, body, and spirit are aligned in real time. You don't need the world to check you because you're already ahead of it. Do you hear what I'm saying to you? But there's another side to this. Excuse me. Another side to this. Think about this question. What happens when the mask you wear becomes the only thing you know? Because here's a reality I learned. A lot of us get so deep into one singular mode of operation, one priority, one grind, one mission, that we stop seeing anything outside of it. At first, it makes perfect sense. It feels logical. We tie our entire sense of success to that one thing. It feels so important to us. We measure our emotional, financial, and spiritual progress by that one outcome. We become so hyper-focused that it feels like nothing else matters. And it works because we're so focused, so dedicated, we're moving until it ruins us. Because left unchecked, the mask becomes a cage. Left unchecked, we lose the ability to shift priorities. Left unchecked, we become so associated with one identity that we disassociate from everything else. And here is the real irony. The same intensity, discipline, and focus that made us dominant in that one thing, we could apply to any area of life. But we don't, because we've trained ourselves to only succeed in one mask. This is where reflection saves you. It prevents you from burning out in a singular role. It forces you to ask, is this success even aligned with who I really want to be? It unlocks the ability to shift moment to moment without losing power. Let's check the chat on a Saturday morning before I give you a visual metaphor. And we process what this means. Being singularly focused. It is intoxicating because we talk about the power of the mind and the power of success and how we become addicted to ourselves and to our lives fundamentally. And in that way, it's very natural, especially left unchecked. This is how days begin to stack. And seconds, minutes, hours lead to days, weeks, and months, lead to decades. And suddenly you look up and you haven't really moved from who and where you were. Not right, wrong, or indifferent. It's just a reality. If you don't check yourself, you will become intoxicated by whatever is providing you a visual or emotional or spiritual or psychological success. We measure success. Nobody reasonably moves in a direction continuously that doesn't provide some semblance of success. And left to measure other areas and spaces of our lives, naturally we gravitate towards what brings us the most perceived success. So those who overwork and overwork and overwork and identify with their profession can't help but always feel like, if I'm not this professional, how do I identify with success? Those who are maybe parent driven and are always staying at home or identifying with being a parent can't help but delineate between what is success outside of being a parent, outside of their relationships, outside of their environment, outside of the network they create, outside of the systems they create, left moving in one singular direction. When we predominantly do that, we become associated with that predominant movement. And again, without us taking a moment to reflect and check, we lose the power in the measures, or I should say the processes that are delivering you success in that one area can be scaled. You can wear different masks. That's why this visual metaphor is going to hit. We're reflecting at 4:13 on a Saturday morning. Are you with me? Are you with me? This is making it to you. The world is coming. The do you rules. The mask in the mirror. Let me tell you about a man who thought he had it all together. He had one mission, one focus, and he built his whole identity around it. Immerse yourself. See it. Work ethic, unmatched. Drive, unstoppable. Sacrifices, all of them. And because he put everything into this one version of himself, he thought he was winning. He thought he had control until one day he sat down in a quiet room, and for the first time, he looked up at himself. In his hands, he was holding a mask, the mask of the hustler, the achiever, the machine. The mask he had worn for so long. He wore it for so long, he forgot who he was underneath it. And as he stared at it, he felt something shift, because for the first time, he realized something was wrong. He turned his head, and that's when he saw them. Lined up behind him were all the masks he had abandoned. Watch it now. Check it and see it. The masks he abandoned were behind him. Faith, relationships, purpose, balance. The things he sacrificed, thinking he had to, the things he convinced himself didn't matter, all behind. He turned back to the mirror, and for the first time, he saw his real face underneath, and he looked exhausted. Exhausted. Not just physically, but spiritually. Because when you live in one mask for too long, you lose the ability to shift. And of course, that is when it hit him. He wasn't running the system. His system was running him. He wasn't in control. He was just reacting. He wasn't executing. He was trapped. So he took one last look at the mask in his hands, and then he let it drop. And when he let it drop, the sound of it shattering on the floor was the sound of his old self breaking. And when he looked back up at the mirror for the first time, he saw his whole self. And for the first time, he knew what real control looked like. You ever feel that? Like you've been so deep in one identity, you forgot how to move in anything else. Like you're successful in one thing, but failing at everything else. That is why these system checkpoints exist, because if you don't stop to check yourself, the world will do it for you. Let's check the chat. Are you checking yourself? Are you checking yourself? Are you paying attention to your inputs and your outputs? Are you paying attention to the system you have created? Is your system inundated in one direction that is causing faults, errors, and leakage everywhere else? Could you have been like me, moving in one strict, perceptually disciplined direction, that the reason for which you were moving in that direction, gaining, attaining, creating, you were missing? These realities, when your mask shatters and you're left to yourself and you realize what you have lost, I always tie it back to sins of omission. I don't wish it on my worst enemy. I'm talking about the real feeling of, I done lost and I can't get it back. Lost time. Lost time also is not just, I could have been this. It's not just about you and your system. It's the reason you even have a systeming. You lose what is more meaningful that you are creating for. That time you lost that you can't get back, when you realize what that means and the impact it had, because there's residual. There's residual. There's some things there's no coming back from. When you realize what you may have done to others in the process, in which the true mask and identity you seek for, that's the validation. That's the legacy. Those words are so overdone and cliche and misused, but you really feel it. There's no way you can't. I'm going to tell you this briefly as I reflect with you. As I was coming back from my run yesterday, I ran by an older gentleman. It looked like, when you get older, you start to shrink because they say all the stuff in between your bones starts to go away, so your bones start coming more together, so you lose an inch or two. But there was an older gentleman who clearly had been through years of life. He was probably in his 80s, little hunched over, kind of moving across the block real slow. White beard, no hair, balding, white beard. The wear of life, the wear and tear of life on the physical body was evident. You could see it in his skin that he had been through life, 80 plus years of life. I run by this gentleman and he looks at me and I look at him and we make locked in eye contact. That locked in eye contact where for a moment it's a little bit awkward because clearly he noticed you and you noticed him, but you weren't sure if you were going to notice each other, that you even wanted to notice each other. But you locked in. And as soon as we locked in, we exchanged energy. And I looked at him right through his soul and I felt like I could receive the energy from his soul and I could see him doing the same to me. And a couple of things crossed my mind, which is probably very natural. The first thing was I had snot dripping all down my face. It was cold. It was windy. So naturally you wonder, because we're so worried about what it looks like. Dan, is he thinking, what is this dude doing out here cold with that snot dripping down his face? Right? And I moved past that, but that's natural. Then I thought to myself, I wonder if he saw me and went into his own memory bank and said to himself, oh man, look at this young man. I remember being that age. I remember being out here running myself. And now I'm out here walking because, well, age has done what age does. And here I am, still enjoying as he's enjoying. But wow, remember that period of my life. And then also I thought to myself, What if he's looking at me, looking at himself, and appreciating that he can no longer take these runs or appreciate life in this way because so much of his life has already gone. So much time has already passed. So much wearing of a mask has already been executed on. The time to do anything else is gone. Of course, we'll never know. I said good morning. He said good morning. I smiled. He smiled. Who am I to judge? But the concept of time applies to all. We can't do it all. We can't get it all. But we can certainly ensure we don't miss as much or any more than we absolutely have to. This is why we reflect. This is why we reflect. I want to get into a faith story. We're going to call this the story of Gideon, the system audit of faith and execution. So let me tell you about a man named Gideon. God chose him to lead Israel into battle against the Midianites, a ruthless enemy that outnumbered them in every way. At first, Gideon had 32,000 soldiers, a decent army, right? You're probably thinking, if I got to go fight, I want as many people as I can. But guess what God said? God said 32,000? Too many. Gideon said, okay. Walked up to the men and said, if you're afraid, leave, you 32,000 brave souls. 22,000 walked away, and boom, just like that, there were only 10,000 left. That's a big drop. That's like a 66% drop. But again, God said, too many. So he put them through another test, separating the ones who were truly ready from the ones who weren't. And when it was over, only 300 remained. From 32,000 to 300. Some of us might think this is Leonidas. Remember that movie, 300? But here's the deal. God wasn't weakening him. He was auditing him, because victory isn't about numbers. It's about alignment, faith, and execution. Gideon passed the system checkpoint because he was willing to audit, align, and execute. Will you? Will you align? Hear the story. I don't go through this to add time to the clock or because it sounds good in theory. This is applicable information to real life. I don't care where you are and what you're doing. You can apply the possibility to audit, align, and execute. Where are you and what life offers you? Are you aligned and are you executing? And then have you audited so that you don't repeat behaviors, patterns, habits, rhythms that don't serve you anymore? I share this with you because it's the most daunting thing that I do. I audit all the time. I audit all the time. It is massively exhausting, so much so that I don't even know if I should recommend it. To constantly be in your mind, in your head, in your actions at all times. I don't know any other way anymore. Because I'm so fearful as I reflect with you that it's not just about losing time, it's losing time as who I don't want to be. I don't want to be who I don't want to be anymore. I only want to be who I want to be. That's so hard. For all the reasons, we're influenced all the time. We're doing all the time. We're trying. I believe that. We're trying. All this idea that people are these, we're just these horrible creatures and groups. No, it's just we're trying so hard sometimes. It doesn't work out the way we want it to work. Reflect, think. 4:26 on a Saturday. What are you sacrificing? What have you sacrificed for the week? One of the reasons I started this program, 81 days in, I started on the first of the year. I didn't know why I started it other than God said move, I moved. Faith, God, faith, honor, loyalty. I didn't have explicit expectations around outcomes. I also just wanted to just hold myself accountable, give myself a reason, inspiration, a route for why I wanted to execute at this level, to show possibilities. And the reality that here we are in another year, and a lot of people who said they would do a lot of things 81 days ago are nowhere near where they said they would be, nowhere near doing what they said they would do, and stopped almost immediately. And I can't help but think, based on everything I've experienced, relational success, business success, self-success, God success, if you don't audit, if you don't constantly have system checks, what are you doing? How could you fix, or not even fix? That's a lot of things. Somehow we believe and imply that something's broken. No, things need to be iterative. If you look back 81 days at this program, everything about how we started to where we are, the entire program has changed. From the thumbnail to how I deliver to what the style of content is. How did that happen? Look at it. It's there for you to reference just as a possibility. You could use this to, there's somebody out there who could do this way better than me. I'm not naive to that. I'm cool with that. But it's a very simple flow. It is a process. You'll find it's iterative. I'm always auditing. I'm always checking. How could I evolve? It's not to suggest that the outcome is world changing by any stretch, but I am better. How could I not be? I've iterated. Why? I've taken risks. I've taken chances. I've audited. I've done some things that people will say, look back, you look silly. No. I had the right intentionality. And as long as I always move with the right intention, the right energy, the right focus, the right core values, God, faith, honor, loyalty, I can't lose. I can't lose. And if I can continue to look at myself and reflect over and over and over, no matter how ugly the baby, right? I got to keep feeding it. I got to keep nurturing it. I got to keep watering it. I got to restrict it, pull back. I got to pull it down. I got to re-release it. I got to see what works. I got to see what doesn't work. I got to understand why things don't work. Did they not work because I'm still a novice, naive, haven't learned enough? Or does it not work because, you tried it. You extended it to the maximum capacity. You follow best practices. You even try to innovate around it. Do you even understand these words and how to apply them to your life? Did you pray on it deep? Did you really have the conversation with God? You can't just listen. That's why there has to be constant feedback. Are you listening to yourself? If you don't audit, you're not listening to yourself. You're listening to how the world, that's what we talk about. The world is auditing you. It's providing you feedback. The deterrence, the way the network can restrict you, the way the hate, envy, jealousy, the naivete, the ignorance, the way it pulls you down is because you're listening to it unconsciously. There's a power, conscious, subconscious. You likely don't even understand the difference and how to delineate between the two. Then there's straight unconscious. You're just unaware. And you're being impacted by the environment around you constantly until you decide to become the impact to the environment. So in that way, the environment restricts you and limits you because you can't react outside of what you see. And what you see is not what you want. So what? I'm doing it wrong. No, you're just allowing it to bully you. The system is checking you because you can't check yourself. And now you don't even know whose guidelines. What are you measuring your life against in this data-driven world? What are you measuring your life against? Whose blueprint? Whose system? Whose values? Whose success metrics? What are you doing? What are you doing? Gotta reflect. It's been a long week. It's been a long week. And I'm ready for another one. We gear up. This is why we do this. There's 3 system checks. Are you built or breaking? For yourself. Yourself. Are you executing or are you lying to yourself? Your habits are either a direct reflection of your dominance or proof of your excuses. Here's a question. Are you waking up on time? Or are you negotiating with yourself still? Are you locked in on your commitments or are you finding loopholes? Or are you building momentum? I love this. Watch this. Are you still warming up? You're on the sidelines. Let me just stretch, coach, before you put me in. Because the truth is simple. Every day you delay, you push your future further away. You either own your actions or your inaction owns you. And you push your future away because you create distance by pushing yourself back. Hear that? You stick your hand out. You got your hand on the future. You want to touch it, but you push against it. So you fall back. The future's still in the same place it was. You just keep pushing yourself back. Let's talk about faith. Have you let God drive or are you still hesitating? What do you keep hearing that I tell you all the time? Faith ain't just belief. It is a command. Are you trusting the process or are you still trying to control every little detail? Are you acting on faith or are you waiting for a sign? Are you walking through doors or are you standing at the threshold scared? What got you shook? What got you shook? Faith is your operating system, but if you keep questioning every download, how do you expect it to run? Today we're going to talk about system instead of network. System. Is it working for you or are you being worked by it? Your system is either designed, built, and executed by you or running in the background without your control. Oof. Ask yourself, do you have a structure that keeps you moving? Or are you still winging it? Are your habits intentional? Or are you just recycling old behaviors? If your daily system was a machine, would it be built for growth or stagnation? Here's what people miss. Here's what is so missed. A system left unchecked doesn't just stop running. It just starts running on bad code. If you don't own your system, it will own you. Period. Let's check the chat. Who's in the chat? Huh? You don't want to rock with me at 4:34 in the morning? Got you. I'll be here anyway. If you don't check yourself, life will check you. The moment you stop reflecting, the moment you stop auditing, you don't just lose awareness, you start losing control. If you don't take control of your system will start running on autopilot. And autopilot, that's where people lose themselves. Are you ready for your consequences? Are you ready for the uncooked, raw, and real about what is happening when you don't audit? There are 3 collapses we're going to talk about: the self, the spirit, and the system. We'll start with self. The mask becomes your prison. When you live in one mask for too long, you lose the ability to move in anything else. You get so locked into one success metric, you forget what it means to be fully optimized. You start over-identifying with the grind so much that you can't function without it. You start defending your limitations because you're too deep to see the cracks. You start rationalizing exhaustion as, oh, it's just part of the process. Let me ask you this. If success costs you your identity, is it even success? How about this? How about this? If growth in one area is destroying every other part of you, is it really growth? When you stop reflecting, you stop seeing yourself clearly. And when you stop seeing yourself clearly, you start making decisions that don't serve you. You somehow think that standing still means you stop making decisions. Wrong. You're just not in control of the decisions you're making. You think because you move, you're not going anywhere. Okay? Spirit collapse. Spirit collapse. Faith gets overridden. You ever notice when people get lost in the grind, the first thing they lose is their faith? They stop praying. I've been there. They stop listening. That's the hardest thing for me to do. They stop trusting. I got trust issues too. Because they become so obsessed with controlling everything themselves. And because of this, they forget who gave them the power in the first place. What's rule number 2? Faith don't wait, doubt deletes the code. Faith is your operating system. You don't check it, it gets overridden by fear, doubt, and hesitation. You start believing, which is outrageous, that you have to do it all alone. You start moving like your strength is the only thing carrying you. You start trusting your stress more than you trust your purpose. If your faith collapses, your foundation collapses. If you stop reflecting, you stop aligning. And when you stop aligning, you start running in circles instead of running forward. That's maddening. You're running in circles. Let's talk about the system collapse. The system starts owning you. And here's the biggest reality check. If you don't run your system doesn't stop running. It just starts running on the wrong programming. Your habits don't stop. They just stop serving you. Your thoughts don't stop. There's a lot of those. They just start repeating old cycles. Your energy doesn't stop. It just starts feeding distractions instead of progress. There are consequences. If you don't actively own your system, it'll get hijacked. It'll get hijacked by the algorithm, by the expectations of other people, by the distractions that keep you weak. A system left unchecked is a system waiting to be controlled by someone else. Here's also the reality of unchecked systems. You know, in the IT space, there are monitoring tools. And the monitoring tools are there in anticipation of to alert you that something might be deteriorating, something might be breaking. If you're not auditing and monitoring, you are setting yourself up for ultimate failure. We say this too in IT, in the space where I think it's relevant. When you procure systems, install systems, operationalize systems, and you work with the people who leverage the systems because systems are enablement for other systems. You spend millions and millions and millions of dollars and implement and install things into the fabric, like the workflow fabric of businesses, people, etc. We always reference and we always work on how do we recover when it breaks? Because inevitably the system will malfunction. There is no system, even machines, that don't fracture and break just from running at all times. You are running at all times. your beautiful, wonderful body that has all these resources in it that you take advantage of and don't even look at. That's why consciousness is important. You think I run because it's cool. Nope. I run because my heart. And I was reading some things about the heart, how the heart expands and sort of decreases when you don't work on it. When it's too idle, it stops wanting to optimize itself. It starts believing it doesn't need to do any more than it has to do. And the least it has to do, the more it starts to function, or the least it starts to function. What do you think happens without your heart? Sounds cheesy, right? It's a little too, well, that doesn't sell. There's no t-shirts with that. It's not going viral. I know. But let's talk about what happens when your heart stops. Your system is always moving. Eventually, it will crash and malfunction and straight up break. If you don't check it, you won't be able to handle the fallout. God forbid. Some of it there's absolutely no coming back from. Some of it you'll realize was preventable. If you just checked on yourself, you could prevent a lot of things that are coming. So let's talk about how to take ownership. Because we can't be doom and gloom. We can't have all these consequences. And I'll talk about how to fix it. Let's be clear about this, right? If you don't own it, you lose it. The only way to pass this checkpoint is to take full control of yourself, your faith, and the system you operate in. Sounds pretty easy. Sounds pretty logical. The self-fix. Approaching 444. Remove the mask, reclaim control. Audit every habit. Audit every habit. Look at what you do daily. Is it moving you forward or just keeping you busy? Then cut the negotiation. If you're still making deals with yourself about discipline, you're not serious. Should I do it? Should I not do it? Maybe tomorrow. Expand your identity. If you've been stuck in one mask, it's time to break it, shatter it, kill it, destroy it. You are not just one thing. You are a system of dominance. Here's a reflection question. Are you leading yourself or just reacting to what life throws at you? Ooh. Are you leading yourself or just reacting to what life throws at you? It's one of the biggest realizations I ask myself all the time. I have to be respectful and somewhat submissive to systems around me. There's a theory, it's a disc theory that I read about. Dominance, inducement, submission, control, right? Compliance, excuse me. I think in today's updated standard, the C is conscientiousness. But we all have levels of dominance, inducement, submission, and compliance. In that way, we have to submit to what's around us because systems are already systeming. And so in that way, I have to follow sometimes. I have to be submissive to that. But I can still lead as a follower by ensuring I respond to life, not react to life. That question is big. Are you leading yourself or reacting to what life throws at you? The reality to some of this and how we wind up where we are is we make a decision about a job, about a relationship, about a hobby or an intent. And we go into it with full conviction that this is a move we got to make. And the move usually moves us in a direction that yields a net positive. And at some point, we stop iterating on it. We begin to react to it. We're not as responsive. We don't really reflect. We don't see where we're at, where we've been, and how we're going. We reach a plateau, and now we're reacting to the life, right? It's like we become in debt. The decisions we make, if we don't become profitable in that respective relationship, we become indebted to it. And when we become indebted to the system around us, we're in full react mode. We're never ahead. We can't anticipate. because we're not watching. We stopped watching. We got in, we started to flow, and in the process of flowing, you stop understanding the iterative nature of growth. That's the difficulty with stagnation, is that just because you stood still doesn't mean the world around you stood still. That job you started a decade ago has implemented new technologies, new workflow, has new leaders, has new networks, has new processes, has new documentation and updated workflows. There's flow charts and process charts. There's tactical decisions, strategic decisions. All these things are happening. And you entered in this one space and never stopped seeing at that level. That's the difficulty we have. We see ourselves constantly in the sand. We only have our face with what's right here. We got to extend the view. Look back. Yo, how'd I get here? All right, cool. If I keep doing that, the distance to where I'm trying to go is only getting further. I'm just reacting. And life is hitting you. Boom. Life's not stopping. It's just boom. And you thinking you're bobbing and weaving, you're getting punched right in the mouth. You got to be able to, and that's a difficulty too, is when you come to that realization and you reflect, all right, I'm here. There is no getting back what's lost. Certainly ain't going nowhere if you keep doing the same things. What do? You got to do something different at the minimum. Something different. That's why we talk about controlling what you can control. You can control when you go to sleep. You can control when you wake up. What did you do Friday night? You talk about what I build and how my system scales beyond me. My entire house, wife, daughter, son, 15 and 12. My wife is my age. She's a little bit older. Her birthday's 10 months before mine. Anyway, 9 o'clock on a Saturday, we were all in the bed. Preparing, 9 o'clock on a Friday, preparing for Saturday morning. Why? We are responding to life. We're in control of how we approach our schedule. We have a discipline and a focus. What did you do Friday night? What did you do Friday night? How many same Fridays are you going to have that fucks up your whole Saturday and crushes your Sunday, and you're right back to the same thing on Monday? At what point do you break that loop? At what point do you say, man, how do I get ahead? I got to put myself ahead. I got to make some sacrifices, yo. I don't have time. How do I create time? You going to tell me you don't have time? I got just as much time as you do. I got to put my 40 hours in. I got to make my salary. I got to pay my bills. I got to pay my debt. I got to manage God. I got to manage God. I got to manage that relationship. I got to manage my mind, body, and spirit. I got to get the physical in. I got to manage my relationship with my son, my daughter, my wife, my community, my network, all those things. I don't have time neither. And I certainly don't have time for what I don't have time for. And I don't have time to be reacting. I'll never get fully ahead because life is a collective. When you start to really put it into perspective, there's so many people moving right now. There's different time zones, different parts of this infinite universe. There's things happening right now that you can't predict, that you won't be prepared for, that life will throw at you. You have to react to it because you weren't ready. You weren't ready because you couldn't get even slightly ahead. Just get ahead of yourself. You can't even get ahead of yourself. You can't get ahead of yourself. Do you hear what I'm saying to you? Why can't you get ahead of you? You haven't accepted the fact that you are stopping you. You can't even reflect that much, because when you reflect, you start saying, oh, my boss, oh, my significant other, oh, yeah, yeah. Let's talk about the faith fix. Realign and reboot the operating system. If we operate on faith, you got to realign and reboot. Check your trust level. Are you walking in faith or still waiting for proof? The proof will come. Have you walked? Eliminate hesitation. Faith isn't just believing, it's moving. Moving before the evidence appears. Reconnect with purpose. If faith feels weak, it's because you lost connection to why you started. Get back to source. Here's a reflection question. Are you executing on faith or waiting for something to convince you? Are you executing on faith or waiting for something to convince you? some visual proof. Go back to it wasn't even called Raw 4 Day 1. In that way. How about this, my beautiful people? I started this specific journey on 1,000 hours to show you that self-improvement and 1,000 hours for self-improvement was possible for you. I was trying to just get you to 100 because they say 18 minutes a day can make you in the top 5% of everything. That was sort of the impetus behind, can I help you and convince you to get you to 100 hours of working on yourself? Because 18 small minutes a day, by the end of the year, you are way past where you were. You could be 1,000, 10,000, 100,000%. You don't realize the difference you can make with 18 minutes a day. 18 small minutes a day. There's data to support it. I tell you, I've done it. And you'll look back on the year and say, yo, I've come so far. But if you look at this evolution, you'll see that it was titled 1,000 Hours of Self-Improvement. It's now Raw 4. We're now day 81. Look back at my very first video like 2 or 3 years ago. It was called Raw 4. I moved in faith. I created Raw at 4 over 2 years ago. I did it for like a month or two. I changed directions. There's so many different titles, so many different names. And in 2+ years, maybe even 3, I don't even know the duration. My point being this, all of a sudden, I just went live on January 1st thinking, well, I didn't know what was going to happen. Faith, God called me, turn the mic on, talk your shit, move, Raw 4, boom. All of a sudden now, I hold myself accountable. That is a full cycle. I didn't plan this specifically and explicitly. I'm now more tactical. I now have more vision. Why? Because I moved. When I started waking up at 4 a.m. 2, 3 years ago, 4, 5 years ago, when I started running, I didn't have a specific, I just did it. Now I wake up at 3. I never said I'm gonna wake up at, I'm gonna wake up. I gotta get ahead. How do I get ahead? I just move on faith. And when you move on faith, the details reveal themselves to you. God will show you. But you gotta show God first. God is viewing through you. So when you see a vision, right? I got a vision. Boom, you move. I don't know how I'm going to get there. I can't see the road. God will start helping you chisel. We talked about recently in one of my previous videos, the bridge of faith. You just walk. And I take every step believing. I don't see the step in front of me. I still take it. And every time I take the step, all of a sudden, the what I need to take that step appears. That's faith in God's hands. I move, and when I move, another step appears. I look, I check, I'm not going to fall, I move. This is not as complex as people think. Movement, it's friction. Friction creates growth. Friction doesn't have to limit and restrict you and curl you up into the fetal position. Imagine that you're in the fetal position for your life. Life puts you in the fetal, and you're just like, you're tucked in taking it. And it's beating you and beating you and beating you, and you don't even fight back. When did you stop fighting? When did you stop believing? When did you curl up? When did you let life bully you? Wake up. Wake the fuck up. All right. Let's talk about the system fix. It's 4:55. I feel blessed. How you feeling? Rewrite the programming before it owns you. Audit your autopilot. What are you doing unconsciously every day that's keeping you locked in place? Eliminate dead processes. If a habit, routine, or pattern isn't working, delete it. Delete. Stop running outdated code. Delete those Friday night drinks and that party you don't need and those people who don't give a flying about you. Reinforce conscious control. Every action should be a choice, not a reaction. Own your execution. Here's a reflection question. Are you running the system, or is the system running You. Are your habits and patterns even yours? Is your belief system even yours? Are the moves you're making yours? Are you running the system or is the system running you? I don't care what you do. I don't care who you do it with. I don't care your goals. I don't care your aspirations. I don't care how grand. I don't care how small. I don't care how quiet. I don't care how loud. I don't care how small. I don't care how big. I don't care how vast. I don't care. Is it yours? Is it yours? Is it yours? Answer that question. Is it yours? Is what's in here and is what's in here yours? Let's challenge ourselves. Here's the system proof challenge. Step one, audit. Audit. Identify one weakness in each category for yourself. Where are you failing to execute? Discipline, consistency, habits. One at a time, one at a time. You got more time than you think. Faith. Where are you hesitating instead of trusting? Doubt, overthinking, fear. Move. The step will appear. System. Where is your execution breaking down? Is it lack of structure, poor habits, wasted time? Structure's big, man. I planned my entire day to the second. I know it sounds crazy, but you'll change your life. Here's step two. Take control. Eliminate one failure point today. No delays, no negotiations. Correct one weakness before the day ends. A thought. Change one singular thought. Make it yours before the day ends. And then report back. Stop being selfish. I know you out there watching. I see my watch hours going up. Drop a comment with one area you took control of today. If you don't write it, own it, and execute it, you already failed the test. No proof, no execution. No execution, no proof. It's Saturday. We reflect. This is your checkpoint. If you don't check yourself, life will check you. So self, are you leading or just reacting? Faith, are you executing or still hesitating? System, are you running it or is it running you? Every delay costs you. It is putting you in debt. Every excuse proves you're not built for this. But if you execute, if you audit, take control and report back, you pass. You move forward, you prove, you run the system. Come back, drop your report in the comments. No proof, no pass. You either run the system or the system runs you. Change your mind, change your life. I am who I say I am. Do you and stay rich.